You did something stupid, and I believe you feel bad about it. And that's why you're all freaked out right now.
An innocent victim.
And I said, you'll never believe it. I'm going into apartments looking for body parts. And it was horrible.
In my numerous years of law enforcement experience, I have never seen anything as shocking and as horrific as that in my entire life.
A gruesome killing with multiple suspects.
This is your girlfriend.
I understand.
Okay. We found a body.
The truth will be revealed.
I think his problem was that he thought that he was smarter than we were.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Macon, Georgia. A city known for its old manor homes, Southern rock and roll, and the prestigious Mercer University.
Mercer is Macon. It opened in 1823, so you're talking well over 200 years worth of history there. And it's known as being one of the top schools in the country.
At the entrance to Mercer's law school sits the now infamous Barristers Hall Apartments.
I came to Macon to go to law school in 1995 and saw the apartments, and they looked totally different from what you saw today. They were extremely run down. There were no balconies, no wrought iron, no patios, nothing. And the people, especially at the law school, were so excited when we bought them and did the first renovation. So we felt like that it was a good investment as long as the law school didn't move. We would be good. But you don't expect what happened to happen either.
The day that everything changed was June 30th, 2011.
My office received a phone call from some of our investigators stating that they were going up to the Barrister Hall Apartments.
And the only thing that we knew was that a student had been missing and no one had heard from her within about a 4-day time frame.
The missing woman is 27-year-old law student Lauren Giddings.
Lauren Giddings had just graduated law school. I mean, she was a very pretty girl, tall. She was athletic. She loved to run, came from a good family. She was preparing for a big move to Atlanta to live with her boyfriend. And she kind of had everything going for herself.
She was very vivacious. She just had a beautiful smile, and she loved her dog. When I picture her in my mind, that's the picture I have. It's her smiling and holding Butterbean.
Detectives Randy Gonzalez and Dan Shirley are assigned to the case.
When the case first pops off, all the detectives in the Bureau, the Violent Crimes Unit, were called out to the scene.
Her friends that she hangs out with said they haven't heard from her, which is unusual because of if they text her, she would normally text back to them at some point in time.
The first place they search is Lauren's apartment in Barristers Hall.
Nothing looked to have been disturbed in any way. It appeared to be in its normal state. The only thing that we saw that was probably out of place was the fact that her purse, her cell phone, and her keys were still there in the apartment, and that her vehicle was still parked in front of her apartment, which was suspicious in itself.
We're thinking, what's happened to her? You know, has she been abducted? Has something happened to her where she can't get help for herself?
Our crime scene investigators were called to the scene, at which time they went into the apartment and they conducted, the process of fingerprinting, looking for DNA, any type of evidence of what may have happened or anything that could tell us what happened. They used Luminol, which it lights up blood under a black light. And when they sprayed her shower with that, it glowed like a Christmas tree. So we knew that something had happened in Lauren's apartment and left a large amount of blood behind. But we just didn't know what.
It's a troubling discovery, and it sends investigators out into the neighborhood in full force.
So we started canvassing the area. We were speaking with neighbors. At the time, there were only a few students from Mercer that was left on campus. Most people that are cooperative with us, they don't have anything to hide, and they're sincerely want to help.
One of those concerned friends is Lauren's next-door neighbor, Stephen McDaniel, who is holding out hope that Lauren may still be alive.
Do you know anybody any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. The only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her.
The problem is, like Lauren's other neighbors, Stephen had his head down studying for the bar and didn't see or hear anything.
It does make it challenging because everyone's kind of preoccupied with their own thing, so no one's noticed anything out of the ordinary.
Then, investigators make a grisly discovery.
We were outside of Lauren's apartment complex in front of the building. It was kind of a windy day, a little bit, the wind was blowing, and we would smell an odor, like a foul odor every once in a while. And, was just trying to figure out, was what it was.
That smell led us to a trash can that was located outside of Lauren's apartment building. So when we opened up the trash can, there was a black trash bag pulled out, and upon opening it, we located a torso inside those trash bags. In my numerous years of law enforcement experience, I have never seen anything as shocking and as horrific as that in my entire life. And unfortunately, we had a pretty good idea that it was Lauren's body.
Detectives won't know for certain until the autopsy results come in. But until then, they're treating Lauren's disappearance like a homicide.
I drove up, and the officer stopped me, and I said, I own this place. I need to get in here. So they let me through. And they had just not 30 minutes before found the torso and knew that we had a murder.
Based on the decomposition of the body, the medical examiner believes Lauren was likely killed between Saturday morning, June 25th, and Sunday evening, June 26th.
Murder is a bad thing, but you take somebody's life and then you're going to cut the body up. My thoughts are, what kind of person would do something like this? What kind of mindset does a person have that could treat another human being like this?
I was just in shock. This happens to other people. It doesn't happen in your neighborhood. It doesn't happen in your life.
To catch her killer, detectives will need to unravel the last 24 hours of Lauren Giddings' life.
We knew that we were dealing with a different kind of killer than what we were normally used to. We didn't know if it was a serial killer, someone traveling through town. We didn't know if it was a jilted lover. We had no idea what we were dealing with.
Quite honestly, I felt like it was somebody random and that we were never gonna know.
When we see dismemberment used in any case of murder, number one, it can have a strategic or an instrumental purpose, which means to conceal the body in smaller parts so that it's never found. But often it can also have a symbolic or sexual purpose. There is actually a disorder called mutilophilia, which describes an offender's need to dismember and mutilate a body. So in other words, the murder is just step one, and it's what comes after that's really motivating them.
As you would imagine, with a crime of this nature, it just sent panic through the community. So we're trying to establish a suspect in this case as quickly as possible.
Detectives turn to Lauren's best friend Ashley, hoping she can help fill in Lauren's whereabouts during the window of time they believe she was killed.
Ashley stated that the last time she saw Lauren was on June the 24th. She and Lauren, along with some other friends, had went to a bar downtown.
One of those friends is a man named Joe.
Ashley said that Lauren and Joe had previously been in a relationship, but they had since broken it off.
She said Lauren's current boyfriend lives in Atlanta, but she and Joe remained friends.
Ashley described the night. I mean, it was just a normal night. They went down to blow off some steam from studying for the bar. Everybody seemed to be happy and having a good time. Ashley said that after they left the bar, everyone went back to Joe's apartment. They had some more drinks, and Lauren had spent the night at Joe's house.
It wasn't until 4 days later, when Ashley hadn't heard from Lauren, that she went over to her apartment to check on her.
No one's that surprised when they don't hear from Lauren for a number of days, and that's normal when you were in the midst of studying for the bar. It's everybody goes into their hole, they don't want to speak to the outside world.
Joe was immediately considered a possible suspect in the case. Usually the first people that are looked at are the ones closest to him. Boyfriends, husbands, ex-boyfriends. So in Joe's case, he wasn't the one that cut the relationship off. So there's a possibility there for quite possibly a jilted lover.
Detectives bring Joe down to the station to question him about the last time he saw Lauren. He confirms that she stayed the night at his house, but says she left alive and well the next morning at 8 a.m.
Joe's story makes him the last person, if that story is true, verified as seeing our victim when she was last alive. And while there's nothing on the surface wrong with that story, unfortunately, as an investigator in this line of work, you have to think dirty. You have to start thinking, is this story a play? Does he know more? Did something involving alcohol happen that night that he hasn't told people?
After finding what investigators believe is Lauren Giddings' dismembered torso in the trash can near the Barristers Hall apartments, suspicions are swirling around her ex-boyfriend, Joe.
The pressure was very, very intense. Like I said, due to the nature of the crime, a city in panic, and so we needed to give them answers as quickly as possible. And Joe was the last person to see her alive.
During the interrogation, Joe remembers something. When Lauren left his apartment on Saturday morning, she said she might try to sneak into the local country club later on that afternoon.
So I went to the Healy Point Country Club, and she was actually captured on camera at the country club out by the pool and ordering a drink. The significance of the camera footage is that it gives us a new timeline of when the last time Lauren was alive.
With Joe's story checking out, investigators shift their focus to Lauren's current boyfriend, David Vandiver.
David lived in Atlanta, an hour away. He was an established attorney out there.
He was about 20 years older than Lauren. We'd received information that David had planned on proposing to her, but he had also admitted that their relationship was a little rocky.
I think I met David one time in passing. I don't know him that well. But I can tell you that the family wasn't enamored with David. I don't know if he just liked being single and didn't really want to commit. I don't know. But I know that at least her cousins were not happy with the relationship.
Detectives asked David to come down from Atlanta for questioning.
Being that he was her current boyfriend, we wanted to see what he knows about Lauren. When's the last time he's talked with her? When's the last time he's seen her?
Detectives decide to keep their cards close to their chest while they suss David out.
David, I want to talk to you over here. What kind of relationship did y'all have? I mean, did she have other boyfriends?
Not that I'm aware of.
Let me see your hands for a minute.
Yes, sir.
Was that a blister from golf?
That's the picture I sent her in a text. I got to, because the guy totally changed my swing, and I swung the club probably 2,000 times.
Listen to me.
Yes, sir.
I'm asking you for your help.
Yes, sir.
This is your girlfriend.
I understand.
Okay. Because we can't find her. Okay?
Okay.
And we found a body. We don't know if it's her or not.
David immediately claims he has an alibi, that he was in California golfing from 9:40 a.m. Friday morning until Monday morning at 6 a.m.
David said that he didn't speak to Lauren the entire time he was in California.
So you're telling me the whole time you were going to California, you didn't call her, check in with her, or nothing?
No.
Then you land in Atlanta and just go back to your apartment or house, wherever you live in Atlanta, and you didn't even call her and tell her you were home or anything?
No, I thought it was going to lead into a whole uncomfortable or awkward conversation about when are we going to get married, stuff like that. And I'm just like, my reaction to that is always just to kind of back away.
If you're in a relationship with someone, to me, it's kind of unusual that you don't talk with someone, within 5 days. I mean, not even a phone call or text. It's kind of one of those moments when you think, well, does he know something about this? Is he involved in this?
When you look at the list of the 10 most common occupations or overrepresented jobs among psychopaths, two of those 10 have one thing in common. They both deal with the law, police officers and lawyers. And unfortunately, the nature of the law is such that it draws people with a wide array of motivations, including some people with some pretty scary long-term objectives.
People that she goes to school with says that y'all have had problems.
We've never had
recently.
No, I understand that, but no.
Do you have a key to her apartment?
No, sir. No, sir.
David had a lot of motivation there. It very well could have been the fact that David being the successful older man and Lauren being the trophy, the fact that Lauren had spent the night with Joe a couple of days beforehand. We didn't know possibly if David knew about this and had, done harm to her.
You don't know anybody that might want to harm her?
No, sir.
Are you worried about that being her?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
While David appears suspicious, his alibi checks out. But before he's released, he reveals a disturbing piece of new information.
So in interviewing David, he did provide us with an email that Lauren had sent him saying that she thought that someone had possibly broken into her apartment.
David says he never responded to that email.
We know at least on Saturday night at 10 o'clock when she sent that email that Lauren was alive at that time frame.
Detectives begin to develop a new theory about Lauren's murder.
Well, that was significant in the fact that now if we have someone that's broken into our apartment, we also have a possible another suspect on the case. It's possible that someone was actually stalking her.
So stalkers can be broken down into two categories: sight stalkers and the resentful stalker. And this type is strongly correlated with subsequent acts of violence. This is someone whose anger about being rejected, about being overlooked, about being humiliated in their mind by a specific person justifies and rationalizes what they do next.
Detectives are exploring a theory that whoever killed Lauren Giddings in her apartment might have been stalking her.
There was no forced entry to the apartment. Your thinking process is, did she let someone into her apartment? Was the apartment unlocked at the time? Did someone enter in? If no one forcibly broke in, how did they get in?
You can't break in through the doors. The doors are solid wood. They're set in a steel casing that is set into the concrete. So when the deadbolt goes through the steel casing, it goes into concrete. And unless you have an axe, you can't chop down that solid wood door.
Someone had to have a key, either a spare key or a master key. And well, we knew that one person that had a spare key to the apartment complex was the maintenance guy.
Detectives tracked down the maintenance man at the Barristers Hall Apartments, David Dorer.
He was a law student himself and very much dedicated to finishing his degree and practicing law.
He said that he didn't keep a close eye or have a lot of contact with the other occupants of the apartment complex unless he was doing a job for them.
Investigators asked him when he last saw Lauren.
He had informed us that he had been to Lauren's apartment a couple of weeks prior to us finding her body.
David Dorer says that he too was consumed with studying all week and therefore can't provide a solid alibi.
The fact that David, the building's maintenance man, had access to that room and to the saw and would have had access to all the residents' personal information, to keys to their units, could have wandered through the halls and around the grounds under the cover of darkness and had a lawful pretext for doing so. To me, I mean, it seems like it was a good fit.
When the autopsy results come in, confirming that the torso does belong to Lauren Giddings and that she was likely dismembered with a hacksaw, detectives go on the hunt for the murder weapon.
Then they asked to see in the laundry area. We let them into our lockout closet, and all of our, as I told you, all of our tools were hanging there. And there was a saw there, but it was one of about 3 saws that was on the peg. And they asked, are these your tools? And I said, yes. I had no reason to think they weren't. They all look alike.
But one of those saws isn't like the other. It shows positive traces for blood.
If I was a betting man and I found this hacksaw covered with what appeared to be human blood in the same building complex as Lauren, who was dismembered, I mean, I would be betting 100 to 1 that that was her blood on the saw.
At that point, it shoots the maintenance man up to the top of the list of being a possible suspect.
When they ask the maintenance man if the hacksaw belongs to his set of tools, he denies it.
The maintenance man told us that he didn't know anything about the hacksaw, that he'd never seen it before. We're lied to all the time, so for him to not be truthful about the hacksaw would not be unusual in a case at all.
The question then is, if he was so careful about disposing of the victim, why leave the most incriminating piece of evidence essentially in plain view in a room only he had access to? It almost seems too convenient.
While the hacksaw is sent off to forensics, Detectives fend off a media firestorm.
When you got a crime like that and, people are wondering what happened, people want answers. They want to know, what are you doing? Or, do you have any suspects?
We kept calling every day trying to find out new information. So I'm sure the police department felt the pressure. It was definitely the main thing everyone in the community was talking about.
Facing immense pressure to solve Lauren's murder, detectives bring in over 20 members of the police force to help bring her killer to justice.
I think once they found the hacksaw in the laundry room or maintenance room of the development, they knew that it had to be someone who either lived in that development or was very close to it.
Detectives begin a thorough search of every apartment in the complex. There's only one person who doesn't willingly consent: Lauren's classmate, Stephen McDaniel.
The way the apartments were set up, there were 2 downstairs apartments and 2 upstairs apartments. And Lauren lived in the apartment upstairs to the left. Stephen lived in the apartment upstairs to the right. So they were kind of next door to each other.
Stephen is a very different person. He seemed a little socially awkward. Some of the conversations he would have with me when I was on site working in the flowers or whatever, he'd stand there and talk to me for 30, 45 minutes about the entomology of bugs. And that was Stephen.
Suspicious about why Stephen won't voluntarily allow a search of his apartment, investigators question him downtown.
And I remember getting so upset because they were treating Stephen differently.
All right. I just gotta ask you a few more questions.
I remember saying to one of my friends that they're stereotyping.
You stated that you're willing to do anything to help me.
If I can help, I will, but...
By helping me, I've asked everyone there, and everyone in the apartment complex has agreed, except you.
It's the lawyer in me, I suppose. What can I say? I just needed to know.
Just the way that he was acting was suspicious in general to me.
How'd you get this mark down here on the chin?
Place I've been picking at. Problem is this hair right here, right in there. I don't know what it is. It gets infected or ingrown, and whenever I scratch at it, it starts to get irritated.
So you don't want me looking in your apartment at all?
If you want to look there and see if Lauren is there, I'll walk you through it.
You don't have no problem with that?
No.
Okay.
Investigators went over to the apartment and began searching it. They had noticed in his apartment condoms. And we knew that within speaking with him that he had made some comments about saving himself for marriage, that he was a virgin. So when the investigators questioned Stephen about these condoms, he spontaneously stated that he had stolen them out of some of the other residents' apartments.
The fact that Stephen confesses to having burglarized apartments in that complex, to me, is the game changer. We know, first of all, that burglary is the most common first crime among both homicidal and non-homicidal sex offenders who are currently incarcerated. It is a gateway crime.
As suspicions deepen around Stephen, investigators pore over several news interviews that he gave the day the torso was found.
We just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's why we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
when I saw the way that he acted when he found out that there was a body in that trash can. I mean, you knew that this man knew something about the murder, without a shadow of a doubt. It's right there in front of your face.
But not everybody believes Stephen is guilty.
The Stephen that I had met could never have done this. And I didn't believe it for a minute.
Stephen McDaniel has confessed to burglarizing his neighbors, leading detectives to wonder whether he was the stalker who murdered Lauren Giddings in her own home.
We were able to take a burglary warrant out on him. He was subsequently arrested on that burglary and held until we were able to possibly get enough evidence to prove murder. With Stephen in custody, investigators obtained a search warrant for Stephen's apartment, where a more detailed search at that time was conducted. And during that search, they located a pair of panties.
So in my mind, as a psychologist, I'm thinking, what is Stephen's fantasy life? What is he thinking about? What is sexually arousing to him, and how may have Lauren fit into that?
They send the underwear to forensics for DNA analysis. Meanwhile, they make a startling find in Stephen's apartment.
I guess it was the second or third day, and I arrived at the apartments, and they called me over. One of the detectives called me over, and he said, "Do you recognize this?" I recognized it, and I said, "It's a master key. Where did you get it?" And he said, "It came out of Stephen's apartment." And I was absolutely devastated. I was feeling like, oh my God, am I the one that lost his key that Stephen found? And is this my fault?
But they didn't find just one key.
There were 2 keys that were found in the apartment. One was a pass key. There was another key found that was actually a key that fit the lock to Lauren Giddings' apartment.
Armed with this incriminating evidence, detectives interrogate Stephen McDaniel for the second time that evening.
What's wrong? You know Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember? Put your hands up here. You remember us talking earlier tonight, right?
Yes.
The first thing that the investigators who interviewed him asked Stephen was, did he hurt Lauren? He doesn't say anything. Stephen just kind of puts his hands up on the table in the interview room and just kind of stares off into space.
Look, just tell me what happened, brother.
I don't know.
Well, where's she at? I'm asking you for your help.
I don't know.
I need you to tell me what you want me to tell her mother.
I don't know.
Do you need to see what you told the media? It was on the 11 o'clock news. Well, I'm asking you. Tell me. I want to know.
I don't know where she is.
I think it was a desperation move on his part. Stephen, at that point, he probably knew that he'd been had, or that the gig was up, and he didn't know where to go from there.
Where were you at yesterday?
At home.
What'd you do at home? Tell me everything you did yesterday. From the time you woke up to the time you went to sleep.
I don't know.
Stephen, you're gonna look at this right here, this little girl right here, and you're gonna say you don't know? I know you know.
I don't know.
Yes, you know. You did something stupid, and I believe you feel bad about it, and that's why you're all freaked out right now.
Detectives interrogate Stephen for 3 hours, trying to get him to confess, but they get nowhere.
In Stephen's case, the fact that he clams up, lawyers up, whatever term you want to use, and essentially doesn't want to speak to investigators or confess, the joke is that his browser history does the confessing for him.
On his computer, we located websites of sadomasochism, There was bondage on his web browser. We also located where he had looked up on how to get away with murder. We also found where he had looked up on how to dismember a body.
I think what we see with Stephen is somebody who may have begun by thinking about Lauren, looking at certain materials online, and the more he looks at this, the more aroused he becomes, and he resorts to more intrusive kind of activities. So he starts taking pieces of clothing from her, letting himself into her apartment using a key. So he becomes occupying of her personal space, violating her, if you will, in more and more intrusive ways, to the point where perhaps this was what we would refer to as a lust murder, where he, is pairing his sexual arousal with cruelty.
Working to build a solid case against Stephen McDaniel, detectives are digging for irrefutable evidence to charge him with murder.
Everyone thought he did it. At this point, he was in jail for the unrelated burglary charges, and there were search warrants executed at his apartment almost every day for weeks. They just kept pulling out stuff out of his apartment.
What they find is a cornucopia of weaponry, handguns, a semi-automatic rifle, an entire collection of knives, and even a samurai sword. But the most damning of all,
the packaging from the hacksaw was found in his apartment. And the packaging matched the hacksaw that was located in the maintenance room of Arrester Hall.
I'm not sure if this is just laziness and stupidity, but I wonder he is so dangerously disordered and paraphilic if that packaging was some kind of souvenir for him.
Stephen was a law student, and I think his problem was that he thought that he was smarter than we were. But I will tell you this, in my career as being an investigator and investigating homicides, he is the only one that I've ever known of to be stupid enough to get on camera and speak about a murder that he's actually the one that committed. At that point, we believe we had enough circumstantial evidence to present it to the district attorney's office for the go-ahead on Stephen being charged with the murder of Lauren Giddings.
While reviewing the evidence retrieved from Stephen's apartment, they discover yet another piece of the puzzle.
Electronic equipment was also taken from Stephen's house, and there was also some videos found. One of those videos showed Stephen holding a pole up to Lauren's window and looking in.
There was a timestamp on that, June 25th at 11:10 that night.
The video in itself was very creepy. The fact that someone is in the privacy of their own home, conducting their everyday routine, business, and that someone has a camera pointed into your window watching your every move. Once that was presented to Stephen and his attorney, that's what led to Stephen confessing and taking a plea.
Based on Stephen McDaniel's written confession, detectives can now reconstruct the final 24 hours of Lauren Giddings' life.
On that Friday night, Lauren, Ashley, and Joe had went to a bar downtown. They'd had a few drinks. Afterwards, they went back to Joe's apartment. Lauren had spent the night there. Lauren had gotten up the next morning and went to Healy Point Country Club, where she had hung out by the pool and ordered a drink.
June 25th, Saturday, Stephen McDaniel videoed through the window of her apartment around 11:10 p.m. that night. Stephen said he entered into her apartment at around 4:30 a.m. He said he came in the apartment that morning with a mask on, screamed, "Get out of my apartment." At some point during the struggle, the mask was pulled off. She saw it was him.
He confessed to strangling her to death. He dismembered her in the shower. Stephen did admit to taking the rest of Lauren's body parts and distributing them throughout different trash bins in the neighborhood. We searched the landfill to see if we could find anything related to Lauren. We didn't find anything at all. There's only one person that knows where the rest of Lauren is, and that's Stephen McDaniel.
I think that for Stephen, the clock ran out. He didn't think that police were gonna find that torso that morning. He was counting on the dumpster coming in and picking up that trash bin and taking it to the landfill. After that, you know, everything was in motion and he didn't have time to catch up.
I believe Stephen's motive was purely lust, murder, all wrapped up into one. As far as I'm concerned, Stephen McDaniel is the poster child for a sociopath. He knew exactly what he was doing. He planned the murder, and then he carried it out. He's the worst kind of killer.
Stephen McDaniel is sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Lauren Giddings.
Initially, they were going to go for the death penalty on this case, but due to the fact that Lauren didn't believe in the death penalty, they did not want to hand it out to Stephen in memory of her.
Detectives believe they may have stopped a serial killer in the making.
I think that if he had killed once, that it's possible that he could kill again. I don't think that anybody would be safe with him back on the street again.
The fact that they were able to catch Stephen McDaniel and arrest him for the murder, I think brings some relief to the family, but it doesn't change anything. How can you get through something like that? Especially when the last few hours of Lauren's life, they have really no idea what happened or what went through her mind. And then to not be able to give your sister, your child, a proper burial, I mean, it's heartbreaking.
When you have someone that you love taken from you, there's nothing that anyone can do to give you closure, even catching the person who did it. You're scarred forever.